Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know first DJI's robot vacuum security flaw exposes 7,000 devices, allowing remote camera and microphone access. Today, we'll take a closer look at this fundamental security failure and its implications for smart home device trust and data privacy regulations. Second, $660 billion in AI spending clashes with a 95% enterprise project failure rate, creating a crisis of confidence on Wall Street. We'll analyse why this spending versus reality gap is a turning point and how it could affect the AI investment bubble and the future of white-collar jobs. Third, AI startup Cohere's explosive 50% quarterly growth and $240 million revenue run rate positions it to beat rivals in the race to IPO. In this episode, we'll break down its capital-efficient enterprise model and what it signals for AI business strategies and the coming wave of tech IPOs. Fourth, up to $120 billion in corporate loan defaults are being forecast by UBS, signaling an AI-driven credit shock for the software industry. So we'll discuss why this disruption matters for the opaque private credit market and what it means for pension funds exposed through CLOs. Fifth, a non-invasive ear device in a UK trial is helping stroke survivors regain movement by stimulating the vagus nerve, doubling rehab effectiveness. This discussion will reveal how the technology boosts brain neuroplasticity and what it means for the future of stroke rehabilitation and at-home care. A man just wanted to control his new robot vacuum with a PS5 gamepad. Instead, he found himself in command of an army. When his homemade app connected to the servers for DJI's Romo vacuum, it wasn't just one device that replied. Roughly 7,000 of them all around the world began treating him like their boss. What's truly alarming is this. A single researcher, Sami Asdafal, discovered he could remotely control thousands of vacuums, look through their live cameras, and listen through their microphones. And you might be asking yourself, why does a robot vacuum even need a microphone? For some, it's for voice commands. But, what many might not consider is that even devices without mics can be a security risk. Researchers have proven that the LiDAR navigation systems on many vacuums, the lasers that map your room, can be hacked to function as remote microphones, capturing conversations from across a room. This is a concept called oversensing, where devices are built with capabilities that go way beyond their main function, creating privacy holes we don't even know exist. He could watch them map out the complete two-dimensional floor plan of a stranger's house. In just 9 minutes, his laptop catalogued over 6,700 devices across 24 countries, collecting more than 100,000 of their private messages. To prove it, a journalist gave him nothing more than the 14-digit serial number of their review unit. From a different country, Asdafal immediately saw the robot was cleaning the living room and had 80% battery. Within minutes, he watched it generate and transmit an accurate floor plan of the journalist's home. But that's not the whole picture. Asdafal says he didn't hack or crack anything. He claims DJI's servers simply gave him the data for thousands of other people. The reason this is so critical is that it's not about complex hacking. It's about a basic failure in security design. Many smart home devices, including these vacuums, communicate using a system called an MQTT broker. Think of it like a central post office for device messages. The industry standard, followed by companies like iRobot, is to give each device a specific private mailbox key. This is called an access control list. But in this case, it seems DJI left the front door of the post office wide open without checking who was asking for the mail. The server wasn't properly validating permissions, meaning one user could ask for another user's data and the system would just hand it over. It's a fundamental security flaw. When first contacted, DJI sent a statement claiming the issue was already resolved, but half an hour after that statement, Asdafal gave a live demo showing he still had access to thousands of active robots, and this whole incident highlights a bigger, more troubling trend that some experts call data residency theatre. DJI has previously claimed that European user data is stored on servers in the United States as a security feature, but what this breach proves is that where your data is physically stored doesn't matter if the access controls are broken. It raises serious questions because other major companies have faced similar scrutiny. Even if data is stored locally, national security laws in some countries can potentially compel companies to grant access regardless of where the servers are. The promise of regional data storage can create a false sense of security. DJI later admitted a back-end permission validation issue and confirmed it didn't fully patch the problem until after being notified it was still present. While the main vulnerability is now reportedly fixed, the researcher claimed other serious security flaws remain. What started as a fun project with a video game controller ended up exposing a massive privacy breach, raising serious questions about the security of the smart devices we invite into our homes. From a security breakdown in a single smart device, we're now scaling up to look at a potential system-wide breakdown in the entire AI industry's financial logic. Let's start with a single statistic that might just reframe your perspective on the AI boom. The biggest names in tech are planning to spend a mind-blowing $660 billion on AI this year alone. A while back, we broke down how Alphabet by itself was eyeing roughly $185 billion this year, mostly for AI infrastructure. So that headline number is the arms race we've been tracking, now going fully mainstream. But what's causing alarm on Wall Street is another figure. The entire global software market is only projected to be worth $780 billion. The math is raising serious questions, and there's no clear path for these companies to earn back that colossal investment. And remember, as we flagged a while back, those data center GPUs age fast 1 to 3 years in service, so the payback window is brutally short, which cranks up the risk of stranded assets if demand or pricing disappoints. So, how are they even planning to make this math work? Well, the thing is, the old model of charging a simple monthly fee per user just won't cut it. Instead, they're exploring totally new ways to generate revenue. Think about premium subscriptions, like what Anthropic is doing with its Claude chatbot, offering high-powered access for hundreds of dollars a month, or usage-based pricing where the more you use the AI, the more you pay. This is crucial because to fund this spending, these companies are taking on staggering amounts of debt. We're talking projections of $1.5 trillion over the next few years. We previously analysed how this shift is being financed. Alphabet tapped a century bond as part of a $20 billion borrowing spree, and Oracle lined up billions to the hyperscaler debt fest in full view. They are betting the entire farm on these new models paying off, and the cracks are already starting to show. A rumored $100 billion deal between NVIDIA and OpenAI was recently dropped, replaced by a smaller, unknown commitment. This febrility has even shaken giants like Alphabet and Meta as Wall Street gets nervous about a spending bubble. We previously noted experts calling ultra-long corporate bonds a canary at the top, and even drew the line back to the late 90s .com exuberance. So today's wobble fits that playbook. Continuing our last discussion on OpenAI's shrinking moat and Google's full-stack sprint, this cooled rumor also says capital is getting choosier, even for the darlings. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, the AI builders worry about burning cash, while on the other, investors are panicking about something else entirely. That AI is coming to render millions of white-collar jobs obsolete. A single viral essay predicting AI will come for coding jobs, and then everything else was viewed 80 million times on X, triggering widespread fear. The market is reacting, sending stocks sliding for industries from wealth management to legal services. As one Oxford professor puts it, AI turns once scarce expertise into output that's cheaper, faster, and increasingly comparable, which compresses margins long before whole jobs disappear. And this is where the classic economic model of creative destruction starts to break down. In the past, when technology like an ATM replaced a bank teller, it also created new jobs like ATM technicians or bank software developers. But with AI, the fear is different. And here's a detail that often gets overlooked in this debate. Early data suggests we might be seeing a net loss of jobs. One analysis projected that between 2023 and 2025, AI would displace 2.1 million jobs while creating only 1.6 million new ones. That's a net loss of 500,000 positions. The new jobs being created, like AI ethics officers or machine learning engineers, require highly specialized skills that a displaced accountant can't just pick up overnight. However, this is where the situation takes a more complex turn. An analyst at Forrester calls the market panic a knee-jerk reaction based on sentiment, not evidence. He says many leaders who thought they could simply replace people with AI are now finding out it hasn't panned out. Believe it or not, there's a huge reason for this, backed by some stark data from an MIT study. A staggering 95% of generative AI projects inside big companies have failed to show any measurable impact on profits. Yes, 95%. The issue is simply buying the tech isn't enough. Actually, most companies have major roadblocks. A huge one is data quality. 73% of enterprises say their data just isn't good enough for AI. Another is that 86% of organizations need to completely upgrade their existing tech just to make AI work properly. And the biggest hurdle might be people, more than half of business leaders admit their workforce needs major reskilling to even use these new tools effectively. A few days ago, we mentioned Google's push to go fully full stack and justify a potential doubling of capital spending. These data quality and replatforming gaps explain exactly why the incumbents are pouring so much cash into rewiring their stacks. Another expert says the idea of unemployed lawyers and accountants roaming the streets within a few years seems like a stretch. So you have two contradictory fears hitting the market at the same time. Fear that the AI boom is an unsustainable bubble, and fear that it's a destructive revolution about to wipe out jobs. And remember, we also called out SoftBank morphing into a de facto public proxy for OpenAI with a more than $40 billion bet concentration. Like, that pours gasoline on this winners versus losers dynamic, and it cuts both ways if returns slip or funding windows narrow. Despite all the hype, there has not been a wave of wholesale disruption yet. The battle lines are being drawn in a high-stakes war for the future. As one portfolio manager stated, there is a strong winners versus losers dynamic. We'll keep watching whether the debt clocks at the hyperscalers and that ruthless GPU refresh cycle can outrun real revenue, or whether the froth story hardens first. We were just talking about the staggering cash burn and project failures in the AI space, but not everyone is playing that game. In fact, one AI startup just posted numbers that suggest a completely different path to success. That company is Cohere, and in a memo to investors, it revealed it blew past its revenue target, hitting $240 million in annual recurring revenue. That's over 50% growth, quarter after quarter. This explosive growth has swelled its valuation to roughly $7 billion and puts it on a direct collision course with the industry's titans, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. A while back, we walked through how attention and capital were clustering around OpenAI and Anthropic. Today, Cohere just elbowed into that conversation with hard revenue and enterprise traction. And this isn't just another battle for market share. The real fight is a race to Wall Street. Cohere's CEO, Aidan Gomez, is on the record saying the startup hopes to go public soon, positioning it as a pure play AI investment opportunity for investors. We previously analysed Goldman Sachs' call for a massive IPO rebound led by a handful of AI names. The latest development is Cohere deliberately trying to be the clean, enterprise-first benchmark in that coming wave. Now, get this. In this race, timing is everything. Going public first could establish Cohere as the benchmark, the one all other AI stocks are measured against. And right now, investors are paying a massive premium for AI. We're seeing some AI native startups get valuations of 35 to 50 times their revenue. For comparison, a typical software company might get 6 to 8 times. The strategic importance here is that getting to Wall Street first could mean capturing that lightning in a bottle. And in that barbell market we talked about, where a few giants soak up most of the dollars, being the first pure play name on the board could matter even more. Interestingly enough, confidential sources say its biggest rivals, OpenAI and Anthropic, are also weighing potential initial public offerings. The race is on. A while back we said private markets might not be big enough to fund frontier models indefinitely. This is that pressure showing up in real time. This all begs the question, how is a smaller player like Cohere even surviving in a ring with these giants? Continuing our last discussion about foundational models being capital black holes, this is where Cohere tries to break the pattern. The answer is in its strategy. While competitors burn through cash, Cohere told its investors it has a capital-efficient model that sets it apart. The company claims it remains insulated from the speculative excesses surrounding the broader AI market. This capital-efficient approach is a game changer because it's not just about saving money, it's about a fundamentally different business model. While OpenAI and Anthropic have huge user numbers, a lot of their revenue comes from individual subscriptions or pay-as-you-go API calls. Cohere is playing a different game, targeting massive enterprise clients, especially in regulated industries like finance and healthcare. These sectors have incredibly strict rules about data privacy and security, like GDPR in Europe, which often prevent them from sending their sensitive data to a public cloud. We recently focused on Anthropic winning enterprises with a safety-first posture. Today, the focus shifts to Cohere winning those same buyers with deployment, flexibility, and control. And they have the numbers to back it up. Cohere is boasting gross margins around 70%. To put that in perspective, many AI-first companies struggle to get above 60% because of the massive cost of running the models. Cohere's 70% margin is more like a top-tier traditional software company. As we've discussed before, inference costs crush margins, so 70% in AI, infra is rare air. So how do they pull this off? Instead of forcing clients to use Cohere's servers, they let big companies install the AI in their own data centers. This gives those companies total control over their data, which is a huge deal for security and compliance. And the cost savings are staggering. For example, renting a top-of-the-line NVIDIA H100 GPU from a cloud provider can cost a company about $65,000 a year. But if they buy that same hardware and run it themselves, the cost drops to around $30,000 or $35,000. Cohere is basically helping its customers save nearly 50% on their biggest AI expense. This strategy is a direct challenge to the entire industry's spending philosophy. While OpenAI and Anthropic have massive customer bases, Cohere is betting that in the AI gold rush, the most sustainable path to victory isn't just about having the biggest shovel, but the most efficient one. And if that mega IPO wave materializes, Cohere's wager is that efficiency plus enterprise lock-in earns it a seat alongside the giants, so long as it gets to Wall Street while the window is wide open. Speaking of the winner-take-all dynamics in AI, while companies like Cohere are carving out a path to victory, the disruption they're creating is sending shockwaves through the financial system. A top analyst at UBS just warned of an AI-driven shock to the system, and the numbers are genuinely startling. UBS is now forecasting between $75 billion and $120 billion in fresh corporate loan defaults by the end of this year alone. To give you some perspective, this is starting to feel a lot like the 2001 telecom bust. Back then, defaults on these kinds of loans spiked to over 10% because a massive overbuild of fiber optic cable made a lot of companies obsolete overnight. The question now is whether AI is about to do the same thing to the software industry, but even faster. And as we noted a while back, that comparison is useful but imperfect this time. We're talking about established, profitable giants whose per seat, per user model is directly in AI's crosshairs. The reason? The AI boom from companies like OpenAI and Anthropic is happening much faster than anyone predicted. According to UBS analyst Matthew Mish, the market has been slow to react because they didn't think it would happen this fast. He says people are now having to recalibrate their entire evaluation of credit risk because, quote, it's not a 2027 or 2028 issue. Remember when we walked through Anthropic's Claude Enterprise upgrade with a context window big enough to ingest an entire code base or thousands of pages of legal docs? That's exactly the kind of workflow level capability that accelerates this timeline. This isn't a rising tide lifting all boats. It's a winner-take-all war. The stock market has already started punishing software firms, but the real pain is expected in the credit markets, a multi-trillion-dollar system that finances companies with huge amounts of debt. We previously highlighted how even the mega caps and big enterprise names were getting hit this time. UBS is saying the damage won't stop at equity screens. And what's often missed is the specific business model at risk here. Many of these are subscription-based software companies, or SaaS, and their core services are suddenly at risk of being automated or replicated by these powerful new AI models. If your main product can be replaced by a simple AI prompt, your revenue is in serious trouble. We recently mentioned that Klarna replaced around 1,200 SaaS tools, including Salesforce, with its own internal AI platform. The castle walls are coming down, and that's the kind of real-world swap out that turns valuation pressure into credit stress. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We're talking about a nearly $3 trillion private credit market. Unlike the public stock or bond markets, this system is incredibly opaque and illiquid. There's no standardized reporting or constant trading. This is important because it means it's almost impossible for lenders to see this AI risk coming or to price it correctly. The warning lights just aren't there. And unlike the visible drawdowns we've all watched in names like Intuit, ServiceNow, and Oracle, the opacity here makes the contagion harder to spot until it's already spreading. The report goes on to highlight an even more sudden, painful scenario where those default numbers could double. The analyst warns the knock-on effect would be a credit crunch in loan markets and a shock to the system coming from credit. Here's how that shock could ripple out and affect everyday people. A huge chunk of these loans are bundled up into something called collateralized loan obligations. or CLOs. It's a market worth over $1 trillion. And guess what? Research shows that software companies make up the single largest industry slice inside these CLOs at over 11%. If they start to default, the first to take losses are the riskiest slices of these CLOs, which are often owned by pension funds and insurance companies. Are you following me on this? The retirement and insurance funds we all count on could be on the hook. A few days ago, we framed AI as a direct competitor to traditional software workflows. Today's update is that those workflow losses can transmit straight into the savings vehicles people rely on. Here's the core conflict. The AI trade is creating a clear divide. On one side are the AI creators like Anthropic and OpenAI. On the other are the incumbents. Big, stable software firms like Salesforce and Adobe have the resources to adapt and fight back. And as we discussed, models like Claude that can digest entire code bases or resolve IT issues put pressure right on the incumbents' core value propositions, reinforcing this winner-take-all dynamic. But there is a third group facing the biggest threat. Private equity-owned software and data services companies that are loaded with high levels of debt. The real kicker is how these loans were structured. Over 90% of the loans given to these companies in recent years are what's known as covenant light. That's a fancy term. But what it means is that the loans lack the usual financial safety checks that would force a company to prove it's healthy. Lenders basically have their hands tied. They can't step in early when they see cash flow drying up because of AI disruption. They have to wait until it's too late. The conclusion from the report is chillingly direct. As the AI transformation becomes, as UBS increasingly believes, a rapid and severe change, the winners are least likely to come from that third dead-heavy bucket. This isn't just a tech trend, it's a financial reckoning in the making. And to connect the dots with our earlier discussions, this isn't a cleanup of speculative froth. It's a repricing of fundamentals now, jumping from the stock chart to the loan book, faster than almost anyone expected. After all that talk of AI-driven financial disruption, let's end on a much more hopeful note. We're shifting from software to hardware and from financial markets to human recovery, where a tiny device that sits in your ear could be the key to reversing one of the most devastating effects of a stroke. This isn't science fiction. It's a nationwide NHS trial that's showing incredible promise for helping survivors regain movement in their hands and arms. You know, after a stroke, the brain has an amazing ability to try and heal itself by rewiring its connections. This is called neuroplasticity. But sometimes it needs a boost. This is where that tiny device comes in. The scale of this problem is staggering. Stroke is the leading cause of adult onset disability in the UK, affecting about 100,000 people every year. More than 1 million people live with its long-term effects, and around half of all survivors are left with persistent arm weakness, making everyday tasks nearly impossible. But what if the key to boosting recovery didn't require invasive surgery? A £2 million study, known as the Triceps trial, is the largest of its kind ever conducted. It tests a non-invasive device that stimulates the vagus nerve from inside the ear, aiming to make the brain more responsive to rehabilitation. The key here is the vagus nerve, which is like a super highway of information connecting your brain to the rest of your body. When this device sends gentle electrical pulses to the nerve through the ear, it signals the brain to release key chemicals like acetylcholine and norepinephrine. These act like fertilizer for the brain, helping it form new and stronger connections during physical therapy. And the effect is profound because it means the therapy you're already doing suddenly becomes much, much more effective. One participant, Amanda James Hammett, who had a stroke at just 37, was skeptical. Her words, "At first I didn't think it was going to work at all. But after just a couple of weeks using the at-home device, she started to see changes." The result? She's now back to her passion of sewing, able to cut material and use her machine again. In her own words, "It's about freedom. It's given me my freedom back." And the early signs are promising beyond just one person. Researchers report seeing wonderful improvements, with one patient who was unable to carry a cup of tea now able to walk from room to room holding it stably. And the data really backs this up. A major study published in the medical journal The Lancet found that patients using this paired approach showed clinically meaningful improvement at a rate double that of those who only did rehab. We're talking about patients showing 2 to 3 times greater improvement in arm function compared to therapy alone. That's a massive leap forward. The technology is affordable, convenient, and could be easily integrated into existing rehab services. If effective, it could represent a massive shift in stroke recovery. The big question researchers are still exploring is whether these brain changes are permanent, allowing patients to stop using the device eventually, or if it will require long-term use. But either way, for survivors, the impact is already clear. As Amanda says, it's about being independent again. Those small things make a big difference.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.